So, good morning, class. Today we're going to continue where we stopped last time, the respiratory system. Then we will start from the lungs. So, the lungs, let's look at the position and structures that are associated with the lungs. Position and associated structures. There are two lungs, one lying on each side of the midline in the thoracic cavity. They are cone-shaped and are described as having an apex, a base, costal surface, and medial surfaces. So these just sentences, they're just trying to describe how the lungs looks like. Of course, we know that we have two lungs, one on the left, the other side on the right, and they are having apex, base, as well as costal surfaces, which we just described in there. So the apex, this is rounded and rises in the roof of the neck. It's about 25 millimeters or 1 inch above the level of the middle third of the clavicle bone. The structures associated with it are the face rib and the blood vessels and the nerves in the root of the neck. So the ribs, we have the ribs on both sides of the thoracic cavity. So the first rib, that's the rib that is associated with the apex of the lung. Then the blood vessels and nerves in the root of the neck are closer or associated to the apex of the lung. Let us look at the base. This is concave and the semilunar in shape, and is closely associated with the thoracic surface of the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is the structure, it's a dome-shaped structure, consists of muscles, and it's closer to the base of the lung. The costal surface, this surface is convex and is closely associated with the costal cartilages, the ribs, and the intercostal muscles. These intercostal muscles, they assist the process of breathing. The medial surface, this surface is concave and has a roughly triangular shaped area called the hilum at the level of the 5th and 6th and 7th thoracic vertebrae. So the middle surface of the lung is associated with the hilum, and this hilum is the area which provides blood vessels attachments. Blood vessels, most of the structures that go inside the lungs, like the bronchioles. So this is found at the level of the 5th, 6th, and 7th cervical vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae. Structures which form the root of the lung enter and live at the hilum, like I've said already. These include the primary bronchioles, the pulmonary arteries supplying the lung, and the two pulmonary veins draining it. The bronchial arteries and veins and the lymphatic and nerve supply the lung. So these, all of them, they enter through the hilum. So this is the structure of the lung. You can see we have the diaphragm here. You can see that this is the left lung, the heart here. Have the pulmonary artery, the left pulmonary vein of the trachea there, the left brachiocephalic vein, excuse me. Also have right brachiocephalic vein. We have the aorta, the biggest vein in the body. Also have the superior vena cava, draining blood, providing venous blood return from the superior parts of the body. We also have inferior vena cava, providing venous return of blood from the lower parts of the body. And this is the aorta, supplying blood to the lower parts of the body. So this is the right lung and this is the left lung. So this is the superior lobe of the pulmonary artery left, passing through there. Pulmonary right bronchus, we have it there. Pulmonary veins, we have them there. Then we have the inferior lobe, and this is the base of the lung that we described. So the base is found inferiorly, whereas the apex is found superiorly. So this one is divided into two, with the inferior lobe, the middle lobe, as well as the superior lobe. The lobes of the lungs and vessels stroke airways of each helium medial view. So these are what we're trying to view here from the medial, viewing the medial. The area between the lung is the mediastinum. It is occupied by the heart, great vessels, the trachea, right and left bronchi, esophagus, lymph nodes, lymph vessels, and nerves. So this is the area which we are describing. This is the area which we are describing. That's the mediastinum area. It is occupied by the great vessels and the heart, which we already mentioned. Organization of the lungs. The right lung is divided into three distinct lobes: superior, medial, and inferior, which I earlier explained earlier on when I was trying to show you on the pictures. The left lung is smaller, as the heart is situated left of the midline. It is divided into only two lobes, superiorly and inferiorly. So if you look at the right lung, the left lung, it is smaller because much of the space is being taken up by the heart. If you look at the anatomy of the heart, it is more suited to the left lung. And this explains as to why it is only having two lobes, because much of the space is taken up by the heart. It is divided into two, that is superiorly and inferiorly. The alveoli. The functional units of the lungs are the air sacs called alveoli. The fat alveolar type 1 cell that form most of the alveolar walls are simple squamous epithelium. So we are saying the functional unit, the cells of the lung, the functional unit cells of the lungs are the alveoli. And these alveoli, they are simple squamous epithelium cells. In the space between clusters of alveoli is elastic connected tissue, which is important for exhalation. So these tissues, they play a very important role when someone is breathing out. As we know that during inhalation, we breathe out carbon dioxide or CO2, which is a half compound to our body tissue. Within the alveoli are macrophages that phagocytize pathogen or other foreign materials that may not have been swept out by the sedated epithelium of the broccoli tree. So we have immune cells in the alveoli which are capable of destroying some microorganisms, some foreign materials that have entered the lungs that were not able to be swept by sedated epithelium. So these cells are the macrophages which engulf and destroy the foreign material that has entered the lungs. There are billions of alveoli in each lung. So we have a lot of these in our lungs, and therefore the number simply means that these are very important cells in as far as respiration is concerned in the lungs. And their total surface area is estimated to be 700 to 800 surface feet. Picture a wide top, a sidewalk 2.5 feet wide that is as long as American football field, or a rectangular 25 feet by 30 feet. Those are just measurements, how big it is. Each alveoli is surrounded by a network of pulmonary capillaries. Recall that capillaries are also made of simple squamous epithelium. So there are only two cells between the air in the alveoli and the blood in the pulmonary capillaries, which permit efficient diffusion of gases. So these cells, they work in the diffusion of gases, that is carbon dioxide as well as oxygen. Each alveoli is lined with a thin layer of tissue fluid, which is essential for the diffusion of gases, because a gas must dissolve in a liquid in order to enter or leave a cell. The earthworm principle, an earthworm breathes through its moist skin and will suffocate if its skin dries out. Although this tissue fluid is necessary, it creates a potential problem in that it would make the walls of an alveoli stick together internally. Imagine a plastic bag that is wet inside. Its walls would stick together because of the surface tension of the wall. So this fluid is very important because it keeps the walls slippery, so that when someone is breathing, these membranes, they don't stick together, so that the process of breathing can be happening spontaneously. This is just what would happen in alveoli, and inhalation would be very difficult. So we're saying if there were no these membranes, breathing would be very difficult because the membranes would be sticking together. But because of the fluid that is found in between them, breathing happens spontaneously because there is lubrication of these surfaces. This problem is overcome by pulmonary surfactant, a lipoprotein secreted by alveoli type 2 cells, also called septal cells. Surfactant mixes with the tissue fluid within the alveoli and decreases surface tension, permitting inflation of the alveoli, normal pressure of the alveoli, in turn permitting exchange of gases, which I will explain. Mechanism of breathing. Breathing is the entrance and exit of air into and out from the lungs. So the process of breathing in and out, that's what we calling it as breathing. Ventilation is the term for the movement of air to and from the alveoli. Every single time you take a breath or move air in and out of the lungs, two major actions take place. One, inhalation, also called expiration, air is pulled into the lungs. So the other one is exhalation. Exhalation, also called expiration, air is pushed out of the lungs. So inhalation, the process of breathing air into the lungs, while as exhalation is the process of taking air out of the lungs. So these two actions deliver oxygen to the alveoli and remove carbon dioxide. So we understand that when we are breathing in, when we are breathing in air, we bring in oxygen to the lungs. Then when we are breathing when we are breathing out, we're trying to get rid of carbon dioxide from the lungs. So the continuous cycles of inhalation and exhalation are known as the breathing. So the two combination makes the process of breathing. So you need to breathe in and breathe out. Most of us breathe 10 to 15 times per minute. 10 to 15 times per minute. Inhalation and exhalation are actually produced by movement of the large fatty muscles. Movement of the large fatty muscles called the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles between the rib muscles. So I explained earlier on that diaphragm is a dome of muscles that helps in the breathing process, as well as the intercostal muscles that also helps in the breathing process. The diaphragm is located along the bottom of the rib cage and separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. So this dome of muscles separates the thoracic cavity, which functions more for respiratory, for respiration, and the abdominal cavity, which functions more for digestion. So this a dome of fat muscle, the diaphragm, separates the two cavities. Before inhalation, the diaphragm is curved upward into the chest. During inhalation, the diaphragm contracts and moves down, causing the volume of the thoracic cavity to increase. So in here, we're just trying to explain that when someone is breathing, before air is taken inside the lungs, the diaphragm is found upwards. So as you try to breathe in, the diaphragm is pushed downwards, trying to increase the thoracic cavity so that the lungs can expand. They can expand with the air that has been inhaled in. When the diaphragm moves down, the volume of the thoracic cavity increases and the air pressure inside decreases, which I will explain. So this is what we mean by mechanism of breathing. So when you breathe in, you can see that there is this expansion which is taking place. Then when you are breathing out, you can see that there is a reduction in the thoracic cavity. Mechanism of breathing continues. So the air outside is still at atmospheric pressure to equalize the pressure inside and out. The air rushes through the trachea into the lungs inhaled. When the diaphragm relaxes, it returns to its cavity position. So during relaxation of the diaphragm is the period that the carbon dioxide is breathed out through the breathing process. This action causes the volume of air in the thoracic cavity to decrease. As the volume decreases, the pressure in the thoracic cavity outside the lungs increases. So I'm saying as the volume decreases in the air, the pressure in the thoracic cavity outside the lungs decreases. This increases the air pressure and causes the lungs to decrease in size. So that's how we see that the lungs will start to shrink, trying to push the air out of it. The air inside the lungs is pushed out or exhaled. So here we're just trying to show some structures that are associated with the breathing of the sternum. From the sternum there, the external intercostal muscles, you can see that they are found outside. Then we also have internal intercostal muscles, the intercostal muscles, then we also have internal intercostal muscles of the ribs, and these are the vertebral columns. You can see them. Cycle of respiration. This occurs about 12 to 15 times per minute and consists of 3 phases: inspiration, expiration, as well as a pause. Physiological variables affecting respiration. Things that can affect the process of breathing. Elasticity. Elasticity is the term used to describe the ability of the lungs to retain its normal shape after each breath. Loss of elasticity of the connective tissue in the lungs necessitates forced expiration and increased effort on inspiration. So when the lungs starts to become hard, that can affect the process of respiration because it will lose its normal elasticity when breathing. So this has to be there throughout so that the normal breathing is not affected in any way. Compliance. This is a measure of the distensibility of the lungs, i.e., the effort required to inflate the alveoli. When compliance is low, the effort needed to inflate the lungs is greater than normal, e.g., in some diseases where elasticity is reduced or when insufficient surfactant is present, it should be noted that the compliance and elasticity are opposing forces. So like I said earlier on that any condition that may come in to harden the lung tissue, it may affect its elasticity. And one of the examples that we can give is reduced surfactant levels, which will bring or affect the elasticity of the lungs, and this will affect the compliance during breathing because it will be opposing the process when someone is breathing. Composition of air. Atmospheric pressure at sea level is 101.3 kilopascals or 760 millimeters of mercury. With the increase in height above sea level, atmospheric pressure is progressively reduced at 5,500 meters, about 2/3 the height of mount of Mount Everest, about 2/3 of the height of Mount Everest. Mount Everest, about 2/3 of Mount Everest. It is about half. It is about half that at sea level. Underwater pressure increases by approximately 1 atmospheric per 10 meters below sea level. Air is a mix of gases, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and small quantities of inert gases. So here what we're trying to explain is physiologically there can be alterations or variables that may affect respiration if there is not enough air where someone is. There is this saying, they say the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. So what we're trying to explain here is as you go up, you find that there is reduced levels of oxygen. So when you go up, you find that the level at which you'll be breathing, you'll be dyspneic because you'll be fighting for oxygen. You'll be fighting for oxygen. So the environment, the atmospheric pressure, when you go up there, find that there is reduced levels of oxygen, which can also affect the way you'll be breathing. You'll be fighting for oxygen because where you are, you don't have enough oxygen. As you know that oxygen comes from the plants. So when you go up in the atmosphere, there are no plants there to provide you with oxygen. Henceforth, explaining the reason why there will be those physiological alterations. Each gas is the mixture. In the mixture exists a part of the total pressure proportion to its concentration, i.e. the partial pressure. This is denoted as PO2 or PCO2. The alveoli air. The composition of alveoli air remains fairly constant and is different from atmospheric air. It is saturated with water vapor and contains more carbon dioxide and less oxygen saturation with water vapor. Water vapor provides about 6.3 pascals and 47 millimeters per mercury. This reducing the partial pressure of all the outer gases present. Gaseous exchange between the alveoli and the bloodstream external respiration is a continuous process as the alveoli are never empty, so it is independent of the respiratory cycle. During each respiration, only some of the alveoli gases are exchanged. So this is just coming from the explanation that I was telling you. Say there will be alterations in the breathing mechanism if where we are there is high atmospheric pressure, because we will be fighting for oxygen, and this will bring about a lot of changes affecting the alveoli. Expired air. This is a mixture of alveoli air and atmospheric air in the dead space. Diffusion of gases, exchange of gases occurs when the difference in partial pressure exists across semi-permeable membranes. Gases move by diffusion from the higher concentration to the lower until equilibrium is established. So earlier on I explained to say when we are breathing, we have high levels of oxygen in arteries, especially in arteries where they carry blood which is highly oxygenated, and in veins where they carry or have blood which is carrying carbon dioxide, meaning there is low levels of oxygen. So During expiration, you find that when we breathe in the air that is rich in oxygen, there will be this process taking place, diffusion. So you find that the oxygen is going to move from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration, as well as carbon dioxide is going to move from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. A region of lower concentration, we're talking of the lungs, and the region of higher concentration, we're talking from the pulmonary arteries. And that's how these gases, they move. External respiration. This is exchange of gases by diffusion between alveoli and the blood. I've explained this. That is carbon dioxide and the oxygen. So you find that under carbon dioxide, we all know that under carbon dioxide, it's found in the veins where concentration of oxygen is low. But during diffusion process, where we see carbon dioxide moving from the blood vessels to the lungs, this happens in the pulmonary arteries. The pulmonary arteries are the only arteries in the body which carries the oxygenated blood. So this takes place there, as well as oxygen. We're going to see that high levels of oxygen which are found in the lungs will diffuse to low concentration, to low levels of oxygen which is found in the pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins are the only veins in the body that carries oxygen. So internal respiration, this is exchange of gases by diffusion between blood in the capillaries and the body cells. Gaseous exchange does not occur across the walls of the arteries carrying blood from the heart to the tissues because their walls are too thin. So the walls of these other blood vessels, they are quite thick and they cannot allow internal respiration to take place. Hence, it is able to take place by the capillaries, which have seen are thin cells. So PO2 of blood arriving at the capillary bed is therefore the same as blood leaving the lungs. Blood arriving at the tissue has been cleansed of its carbon dioxide and saturated with oxygen during its passage through the lungs, and therefore has a higher PO2 and a lower PCO2 than the tissues. You can remove that. And the tissues and gases exchange before they occur. O2 diffuses from the bloodstream through the capillary wall into the tissue. Then carbon dioxide diffuses from the cells into the extracellular fluid, then into the bloodstream towards the venous end of the capillary. So this explains the movement of blood during internal respiration. Lung volume and capacities. Lung volume and capacities. In normal quiet respiration, there are about 15 complete respiratory cycles per minute. Different intensities in breathing move different volumes of air in and out of the lungs. The lungs and the air passages are never empty, and as the exchange of gases takes place on across the walls of the alveolar ducts and alveoli, the remaining capacity of the respiratory passage is called the anatomical dead space. About 150 means there are 4 volumes. So here we're just trying to explain the capacity of the lungs. Like we were saying, we breathe about 10 to 15 seconds per minute. So these may differ depending on the activity that we are doing. The tidal volume is the volume of air inspired or expired with each normal breath. It amounts to about 500 milliliters in the adult male. The respiratory reserve volume is the extra volume of air that can be inspired over and above the normal tidal volume when the person inspires with full force. It is usually equal to about 3,000 milliliters. So these are just some of the terms that you need to know, like the tidal volume. The residual volume is the volume of air remaining in the lungs after the most forceful expression. This volume average about 1,200 mils. So you just need to know these terms, what they mean. The lung capacity, the lung inspiratory capacity equals the tidal volume plus the inspiratory reserve volume. This is the volume of air about 3,500 mils a person can breathe in, beginning at the normal respiratory level and descending to the lungs to the maximum amount. So the maximum amount of air a person can breathe in is about 3,500 mils, and this is the capacity of the lung. The functional residue capacity equals the expiratory reserve volume plus the residue volume. This is the amount of air that remains in the lungs at the end of normal expression, about 2,300 milliliters. The vital capacity equals the inspiratory reserve volume plus the tidal volume plus the inspiratory reserve volume. This is the maximum amount of air a person can expel from the lungs after first filling the lungs to their maximum extent and then. So this, from the 3,500 mils that a person can breathe in, what will come out during the expiratory process is about 2,300 milliliters. So gaseous exchange and transport, chemicals analysis of the gases that are inhaled and exhaled. Gas inhaled versus exhaled. When you breathe in, oxygen is about 20.71%, while when you breathe out about 14.6%. When you breathe in, carbon dioxide is about 0.04%. When you breathe out, carbon dioxide is about 4.0%. When you breathe in, water is about 1.25%. When you breathe out, water is about 5.9%. Three important things happen to the air we inhale. Oxygen is removed. Oxygen is removed. Carbon dioxide is added and water vapor is added. This occurs in the alveoli in the lungs. Our lungs consist of about 300 million alveoli, where gaseous exchange occurs, the exchange of carbon dioxide and the oxygen. Gaseous exchange and transport, blood flowing from the heart enters capillaries surrounding each alveoli and spread around the alveolus. This blood contains a large amount of carbon dioxide, CO2, and very little oxygen. So the transport is through the blood that we are explaining. So blood acts as the means by which gases enters through the body tissues. The concentration of the gases in the blood and the alveoli are not equal. Because some gases are in high quantities, other gases are in low quantities, so they are not equal. This causes the diffusion of carbon dioxide from blood to the alveoli and the diffusion of O2 from the alveoli into the blood, which I explained earlier on, movement of gases from a region of higher concentration to a region of low concentration, which is being repeated here. So two special molecules help this process of gas extraction work efficiently. We have what we call the macromolecules. Supply consists of phospholipids and protein. They coat the inner surface of the alveoli. And the other molecule that helps in this is the hemoglobin, an oxygen-carrying molecule that is a component of blood. Hemoglobin is red-colored protein found in red blood cells. So each hemoglobin molecule has four sides to which O2 or oxygen atoms can bind or attach themselves. Thus, one hemoglobin molecule can carry up to 4 molecules of oxygen. So most of the oxygen, 95%, moves into the red blood cells where it combines with the hemoglobin. Regulation of breathing. Breathing is such an important function that your nervous system will not let you have complete control of it. So in other words, we are saying it is under involuntary control. So breathing is an involuntary action, like I've said, under control of the medulla oblongata in the lower part of the brain. Sensory neurons in this region control motor neurons in the spinal cord. Although you can consciously control breathing to a limit extent, such as holding your breath, it cannot be continuous, suppressed or suppressed, because it is under the involuntary control. The need to supply oxygen to our cells and remove carbon dioxide is a powerful one, and this explains as to why we cannot control we cannot regulate the breathing process. You can only hold your breath until you lose consciousness, then the breath takes over and the normal breathing resumes. Carbon dioxide and the hydrogen ions, blood acidity are the primary stimulant that causes us to breathe. The nervous system must have a way to determine whether enough oxygen is getting into the blood or not. So because we don't control the breathing, we don't regulate the breathing mechanism. This is the reason why we just find ourselves breathing very fast, because it has been detected by the neurons that the level of oxygen in our blood circulation is low, and therefore we need to look for more oxygen. And how does that happen? You find that there'll be increased respiratory cycles as someone is breathing, as a way to come up with a compensatory mechanism to supply the body tissues with enough blood, with enough oxygen, I mean. So these special sensory receptors are sensitive to the levels of gases in the blood, especially the level of carbon dioxide. One scent is located in the carotid arteries in the neck, which carry blood to the brain. The other set is located near the aorta, the large artery that carries blood from the heart to the rest of the body. So when carbon dioxide dissolves in the blood, it forms an acid known as carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is so unstable that it immediately breaks down into hydrogen ion and a bicarbonate ion. regulation of breathing, which is this equation which we are showing here. Most carbon dioxide travels in the blood as bicarbonate ions. When the blood reaches the lungs, the series of reaction is reserved. So the bicarbonate ions combine with a proton to form carbonic acid, which in turn forms carbon dioxide and water. The carbon dioxide diffuses out of the capillary into the alveoli and is exhaled into the atmosphere. The hydrogen ion changes the acidic pH of the blood, and it is then changed in the acidity the special sensory called to respond. The lungs of an average patient have a total air capacity of about 6.0 liters, which is about 6,000 liters or mils. Only about 0.6 liters is exchanged during normal breathing. This is all the air we need at rest. During exercise, deep breathing forces out much more of the total lung capacity, which we say is about 3,500. As much as 4,500 liters of air can be held or exhaled with effort. The maximum amount of air that can be moved into and out of the respiratory system is known as the vital capacity of the lungs. Vital capacity of the lung. So when we breathe out forcefully, the air that comes out from our lungs is what we call vital capacity of the lungs. The vital capacity is always 1 to about 1.5 liters less than the total capacity, because the lungs cannot be completely depleted without serious damage. Without serious damage. So the extra capacity allows us to exercise for long periods of time. The extra capacity allows us to exercise for a long period of time rather than breathing 12 times a minute as most of us do at rest. A learner may breathe as often as 50 times a minute. For rapid and deep breathing during vigorous exercises, you can use the muscles of the rib cage. Muscles of the rib cages, which we earlier on showed the time that I was discussing on structures associated with the breathing mechanisms. So we've come to the end of our today's discussion.